Welcome back, subscribers. This is going to be like video 2 on the Iranian conflict, and this is going to talk about a little bit about the money. And it got me kind of going on it because my daughter is home visiting, and her husband is in the U.S. Navy, and so she's a Navy wife, and she understands he's an officer, and so she understands a lot more than most on how the system runs. And there was just recently a warship, an Iranian warship, that was sunk by one of our U.S. submarines, attack submarines. And the I was just recently. It's funny how this has all kind of played out. So I went up and Kate and I, my significant other, Kate and I had went up to visit my daughter and her husband at Newport News. At the shipyard. They live in Norfolk, in that general area. And anyway, I got to tour one of the boats. I got to tour the boat that he's stationed on. I'm not gonna tell you what boat it is. Keep everything protected. So there's like some elements in this that I'm gonna kind of keep out of the mix of keeping everybody, not disclosing it, keep everybody safe. So anyway, we went and did tour the boat, and it just so happened that he's like, at that day he was a commanding officer on the boat. So anyway, we went and toured the boat, and I haven't been on a submarine, a U.S. submarine, since probably my grandfather took me on when I was just like a toddler. I remember being on like a World War II sub down. I think I can't remember where it was, Alabama or somewhere around Panhandle of Florida, something like that. I was young, but anyway, it's far different. From what I remember, I was probably maybe 8 years old, something like that. But this particular sub that we were on is one of the older boats, but the inside of it was really worn out. It was really heavily used, and it's at any rate, walking through the boat, he's showing us everything. He could take us through most of it. There's some classified areas, like for the propulsion system, because it's nuclear, wasn't allowed to take us in there. But we got like you know guided tour of this boat. And at any rate, we go down to the torpedo room, and whenever the ships come in, the boats come in, they strip ordnance off of it. So this particular attack boat had Tomahawk missiles and these torpedoes that were used. Same type of ordnance is on, most all the attack subs is all pretty much the same. And these I was we walked into the room, the torpedo room, and I was just like kind of messing around, and I was they're just like right there, they're you're right next to them. And I was just, doing my thing and just kind of playing around. And I was like knocking on the torpedo. And it was just funny, just me being me. And they're like 10, 12 feet long. But they had probably 6, 8 of them still on the boat that hadn't been taken off yet. And yeah, they just don't let them sit there loaded. I think it's a safety issue, whatever. But anyway, he was just kind of like walking us through all of it, area. And we didn't really know, he didn't we weren't talking money or anything like that. It was just kind of like just actually like seeing it. And now this event had happened where one of the U.S. subs had sunk one of the U.S. Or Iranian warships, and saying that the torpedo that was used was $1 million torpedo. And she had said this yesterday, and I thought to myself, I was like, that was $1 million. That's outrageous. That doesn't sound right. And I was like, so the boat carries, I think, it's either 12 or 24 of them. They're all probably a little bit different, but um, that's a lot of money be sitting in ordnance that's sitting on there, and they're hardly ever used. His boat was just recently in another operation to the south side of the equator, recently in the past month. And I asked him, I said, do you guys see these drug boats? And he says, yeah. He said, but we don't ever touch them because, one of our torpedoes is not worth firing at any of these drug boats. He said, they'll just send an Apache in there and wipe it out, whatever. And he said, it's not worth using one of them because they're so expensive. And so anyway, she's talking about the $1 million, and then she said this doesn't make any sense. She's reading the articles because she's like connected in with some of the other storylines, internal like military news and stuff like that. And she said, since we've been over there, it's cost the U.S. taxpayers $4 billion, in costs in Iran. And I said, don't they get like extra pay? Don't they have to pay the guys more money? I said, whenever they go over and, if it's a conflict situation or an actual operation. And she's like, no. She's like, she's like, no. And she said he was in the Venezuela operation, and he said there was no more money that was given. She said they're on staff. They have to they're being paid by the United States government and on budget, and you have to be ready at all times. But you're not getting paid any more money, unless it's something where they're deploying more guys. But if it's the general military use, like they're ready for it and they'll just go handle it. So it doesn't matter if they're talking about leaving, ships out to sea till now. I think that they're saying it's possible it might go to like September, which is probably means that this is going to go on for like 20 years. But anyway, I was like, $4 billion. She says, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. She said, if the military is going out there and they run operations, she said, I could see maybe the ordinance that it costs, XYZ dollars for, torpedoes or tomahawks or whatever else that they're letting loose on these people in these military installations. She said, but that doesn't make any sense. She said, how could it be $4 billion worth of ordnance? She said, because they're running all these operations. I was like, well, I said, based on the last video I just did, I said, they're doing the old classic accounting double billing element. I said, where they're going to dish it back off on the American citizens. But I said, also there's interest of whoever is paying the United States government a cost to go use their military for their operations. I say, that's what's happening. I said, that's the reason why they're putting a number on it. I said, so this is another kind of tell where it's not really it's a joint operation that you can see behind the scenes. Be like, are they going to disclose any of this? No. How are they going to do it? Well, let's say China says, hey, can you go in there and rough up our ally? Like I said before, like go rough up Iran because we need this, we're rebuilding the Silk Road. It's this commerce highway that we're basically building through, through Iran, right through Tehran. And we need to open this all up. And I talked about it in my last video. And that's ultimately the reason. So now Iran's been dragging its feet and they're not following through. As of 2023, they're like, yeah, we just don't really want to do this. So China and Russia, or whoever is really behind, probably them, they're going to just make some backdoor deal with the United States and say like, okay, we'll be hands off, but you need to go in there and persuade them that they need to go ahead and move forward with our operation in reopening the Silk Road. And so that's the mechanism of the business of it. We have a military they say it's for defense, but it's also for hire. And that's the way that we're seeing it, because ultimately the United States in the future isn't going to have any interest inside that territory other than oil. But it certainly seems like the South America element with Venezuela, there's a ton of oil that's inside that space, plus domestically in the United States, and then the oil fields that have been discovered through Canada and the United States are our own strategic reserves and can be used in the North American business model, North and South American business model, and then the Middle Eastern and other half of the globe will be using oil reserves and resources from the Middle East. So it'll stay. So because there's really no reason to be shipping it all the way around the world. It's absolutely ridiculous. So they can consolidate efforts and keep those energy resources over there. So ultimately, it's in their best interest to be, organizing, if you will, between China all the way over, into Europe. And that's essentially the new plan. But you're like, well, we need to have a military go in there and straighten things out. And that's why, why we have to put a number on it. I say, if they can charge U.S. taxpayers $1 billion and have, get paid back, get a kickback essentially from one of these other countries, like have them buy bonds or whatever else, or they've already purchased them to stabilize our markets. That's basically how it works. So, but ultimately, the U.S. taxpayers, as always, have always, flipped the bill. That's our, I don't know, uh, by being a lucky to be an American, to be inside the space, we have to pay for it. And ultimately, the U.S. is doing business with these other people that are supposedly our adversaries, but behind the scenes, they have, like, it's a contracted element to establish this new commerce gateway. And I pointed out to somebody else before. I said that they brought up about Afghanistan. Like, why were we there? This is a waste. Da, 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 da. And I was like, no, they had to soften up the uh, the Taliban, all the tribal fighters inside that territory. I said, because there's an oil pipeline that's proposed right through that territory. I said it's being built as we speak. So if you look up, like, Afghanistan oil pipeline, you'll see the map. You'll see it, and you say, like, all right, well, where it was before, was it possible, as far as relations, 20 years ago, to be able to build that and just have NGOs roll into Afghanistan and say, we're going to go ahead and build a pipeline in here? It wouldn't have happened. It would have been all hell broke loose. So what they can do is you send in the United States military, and then they do a head count, and they start kind of cleaning up the census background to find out, like, how many people actually live there, where they live, so on and so on, and basically map the entire country, because they don't have the infrastructure to do it. And so, U.S. military, it's not only just force, but it's also in strategic mapping of commerce and business. So anyway, this pipeline, that's what the main interest is to roll this pipeline through there and make deals with locals to allow this operation to happen. Because it basically, if you look on a map and you look at everywhere, like I said, from China, it's called, what did I say yesterday? Oh, it's, I didn't use the term, the Silk Road. It's called the Belt Road Initiative. Okay, the Belt Road Initiative. All right, so again, you could pull this up. Um, Belt Road Initiative was also known as the One Belt, One Road, and sometimes called the New Silk Road, as a global infrastructure and economic development strategy to the government of China. Initiates were launched Chinese Communist General Party Xi Jinping in 2013 while visiting Kazakhstan. So they're all in cahoots. They're all there's a master plan that's being cooked up. And part of the reason why I'd said this before in my last video was that since everything is going to be running on, like, digital blockchains, if you're inside that digital space, it falls under international law. So not only there isn't going to be one country. That's why I cover digital and crypto, because it's part of not only the geopolitical game of what's being played, and how to basically, like, position yourself or capitalize on it, so that you're not getting your consciousness chewed up by getting pulled into this behavior. It's just bigger boys with bigger toys playing chess, and that's what's happening right now. And ultimately, Iran is uh, they have a very interesting situation because of the religious element of it. That they've been really sequestered away from the general business of that particular territory, and that's been done for a reason, so that the oil reserves can stay available, and that they don't really open it up to commercial conquests, and to keep it off the world stage. So, like, if we put sanctions on you, we make it, make it so that they basically have created, like, a kingdom where they've built such high walls around Iran that they can't really actually do business with anyone. And that's a strategic mechanism that's created on the world stage to preserve resources, and make it so that the larger hands that are playing this game will have the availability of those resources in the future. And but again, they're going to spin this all on the news in ways that just whips everybody up. And is there going to be it's still going to be really dirty. I mean, this is the best thing the way I could describe this is a a metaphor or an example of what's actually going on right now on the planet is if you use if you ever saw a chess game being played, and most people aren't into chess, but um, you can most of it's just sitting and strategizing. They're just kind of like seeing like who's going to make the first move, who's going to make the first move, and whenever that move is made, it triggers. Happens in chess, and there'll be this back and forth, like it looks like speed chess, like boom, 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 boom. Okay, that's where we're at right now. Okay, and the more things that keep coming at us, these have already been planned. There's already been, is it a conspiracy? That people are conspiring basically to come up with plans and contingency plans on contingency plans on so on and so on and so on because they're doing business, and ultimately they know that the people that they're doing business with are not telling the truth. So each side knows this, and they are, you know, they're basically playing. It's like poker. That's the only way to describe it. But they're using humanity. They're using territory. They're using natural resources, and so as a mechanism to play their game. And this is the way it's always worked this way. So it's I'm not into it because it's not my game. I'm not in that space. But once I started plugging in my personal business experience with over 30 years of being in business, real estate, and et cetera, that I've seen this behavior. This is something that happens in small businesses up to larger corporations, that there's a gaming effect that happens. And the same relative gaming effect is it's like it's a human, humans are into it. They're into it. They like playing games. Um, Somebody that tells you like, oh, I don't play games and I don't like games, they're telling you they want to play games. That's what how that works. Um, so that's what's happening. That's what's happening globally, and they're going to spin it off and make it seem like and all these people are going to come out and say, why do the U.S. taxpayers have to pay this? Why are we having to front the bill? Our taxes are going to go up to go pay for XYZ, and it'd be like, well, the way they look at it is that the world has been using your dollars to absorb your inflation, and it's essentially these countries that need help or want things to move in a specific direction for their economies, they're getting paid back. That's the way they look at it. So the reason how you have your freedoms and how the United States works, it's kind of jacked up. I don't, I agree, but um, the system kind of works. I get why they do what they do and how it's set up, and then why they don't come out and disclose 100% of the reasons why things are happening the way they are and what direction they are going, because they know that they're being used. Like essentially the U.S. government, the power of the U.S. and our economy and the ability for our taxpayers to even pay for it is not like of any other country that's on the planet. And ultimately, it's for this globalization push that's happening. And we're going to be living in a very, very different space. It's supposed to be by 2030 is what it's being tracked towards. But anyway, I'm waffling. I could just go on and on about it from all kinds of different examples and things like that are happening, but I'll save it. I'll keep my videos kind of short. I've been like rambling for like 18 minutes, but yeah, there'll be more to come. And like I said, I'm going on vacation next week, and I'll do some videos and stuff. But if anybody tunes into this, you won't be seeing me probably for a while. It's possible I could maybe I could go live. I don't think I can go live on a mobile device. I don't think I can do that. But yeah, I said that this is something that's not really a primary interest to us. It's just that I know how it works, and it's part of the whole system. So like what our interests are at Reservoir is formulating an environment for other people to come in that know that something else is going on, but they can't really get like really solid information. And there's things that I can't talk about in the public forum that we know about because of our sources and things like that. Um, because I just can't put it out there, and we're protecting that information. So we have that behind a paywall. As long as you put things behind a paywall, you're in a safer environment. I think whenever you start saying things like publicly and it it'll whip up somebody in the wrong direction, and then that's not a healthy environment. And then ultimately, like whenever the governments of the world are actually you know, they've been building up to this for decades to try to get this all like handle, like how they're going to be done. This isn't something that's new, being in Iran. um they have a lot at stake, so the last thing they need is you know some guy who's speaking the truth and is gonna like fix everything and catch them, and we're gonna hold them accountable, and be like, whatever. You'd be like, yeah, that's gonna not happen ever. So I respect that, and I respect the environment that has been created out of it. I don't agree with it 100%, but there's some elements that have come to our inside of our space that we know that this is kind of a like a necessary evil, if you will, of how the planet runs and how it works. And we can't always be kumbaya and everything be peace, love, and joy. It just doesn't work that way. That's just human nature in general. I've talked about this before, is that humans they like to be lied to, they like to be tricked, they like games, they like conflict, they like the things that are the most interesting things for them to watch is Cops has been I don't know how long Cops has been a TV show. That's forever. I mean, it's probably like 30 years. Cops TV show. Just interested. Just popped into my mind. 37 years, 37 seasons. Must be pretty successful. Yeah, exactly. And then they like money, right? The Price is Right. That's been on for ever, like 50 years or something like that. They like winning things. They like conflict. They like guns. They want gun violence to stop, but they're gonna watch the latest, greatest whatever John Wick movie and love it. Or whatever, fighting, conflict, whatever else. The interest, if you look at what's popular in media, movies, TV, whatever, and what has been running the longest, what has the most interest, makes the most money at the box office, etc., uh, that's what humans are interested in. And so whatever happens in fantasy land, it's also happening. It's interest, period. They have interest in it. So it also happens in reality land. And that's just how humans roll. And you could say that you don't like it, but if it gets you more interested and you're looking at your phone, and now you're looking at world news, and you wonder how it's going to affect your family, as you wonder how it's going to affect your job, you're wondering how it's going to be, affecting your health and your mental health and so on and so on. If you knew how it worked, then you'd be in a more you're taking more of like a stoic perspective on the reasons why it is this way and why humans work the way they work. So there's absolutely a metaphysical element that is involved in this. And if you can get to that internal nirvana and understand how the world works, then your consciousness won't get chewed. You won't create a dis-ease from your or a pathology because of your anxiety levels and things that are interrelated to other people's gameplay that we don't really have any direct business in it. We're just fronting the capital for it. So anyway, more to come. Wish me luck. I have to break in this engine. I got to put like 500 miles on it. I've got it's a brand new motor that's in this car, and I've got to drive it around California, change the oil, and then start heading back and put 2,700 miles on it. So it's really not the best situation for a brand new engine, but I think it'll work itself out. Cheers.